Hello and welcome. Tonight you step into a world where fire doesn't only warm, it destroys. A world where books are illegal, curiosity is dangerous, and silence is louder than truth. This is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, a story of fire, fear, and fragile hope. If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Novel Whisper Official, and comment below the title of the novel you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. The sky above the city is dark, but on the streets below flames bloom like flowers. Guy Montag moves with an almost theatrical grace, the heavy helmet shielding his face as sparks dance in his visor. He is a fireman, but not the kind you know. His purpose is not to save, but to burn. In his hands roars a brass nozzle, and from it pours the orange breath of destruction. A house collapses into glowing ruin as he laughs quietly inside his mask. Kerosene clings to his skin like perfume, and he feels proud, righteous, even exhilarated. He believes he is a guardian of order, erasing chaos one page at a time. When the last ember hisses into silence, Montag returns home through the quiet streets. The blackened smell of char clings to him, and yet, instead of exhaustion, he feels the strange, sharp contentment of a man who believes his world is in balance. It is then, under the whisper of the autumn wind, that he notices a figure. A young girl, no more than 17, walks beside him, her steps light, her face open to the night. She tilts her head toward the stars as if speaking to them. Her name is Clarisse McClellan, and her presence disarms him. Where others hurry with eyes fixed ahead, she wanders, questions, observes. "Do you ever read the books you burn?" she asks softly. The question is absurd, dangerous even, yet her tone is curious, not accusing. Montag laughs it off, but something unsettles him. Clarisse talks of dew on the grass, of tasting rain, of billboards rushing past so fast that no one remembers what they sell. She wonders aloud if firemen once put out fires instead of starting them. Her words are like pebbles dropped into the still water of his mind, creating ripples he cannot ignore. As they part, she looks at him with eyes too alive, too searching, and asks the question that will haunt him. "Are you happy?" Montag returns to his house, its walls sealed and airless. The smell of antiseptic, the hum of machines, the empty pulse of technology fill the rooms. His wife, Mildred, lies motionless on the bed, her face pale, her lips slack, an empty bottle of pills by her hand. The mechanical technicians arrive, indifferent, operating with snake-like tubes and cold efficiency until her stomach is cleared and her blood replaced. No doctor, no concern, just another routine case in a city numbed by forgetfulness. As she stirs back to shallow life, Montag wonders why he feels no closeness, no warmth. The words of the girl echo, "Are you happy?" He wants to dismiss them, but they linger like the smell of smoke in his lungs. He lies awake, staring into the ceiling's shadows, his mind restless. The next evening, he steps outside, almost expecting her. And there she is again, Clarisse, barefoot, letting rain touch her skin as if each drop were a treasure. She speaks of her family who sit together and talk instead of drowning in the noise of giant television screens. Her laughter is not loud but real, and it unsettles him more than the silence of his home. She notices things he never would. The way people rush without looking at each other, the emptiness in their eyes, the world's slow surrender to machines. For the first time, Montag feels the sharp contrast between the flames he creates and the fragile spark Clarisse carries within her. He cannot admit it yet, but something inside him has shifted. The fireman who once smiled at burning pages now lies awake, haunted by the question of happiness, of meaning, of what has been lost in a world where books are ashes before they can breathe. The days pass, yet Clarisse's presence clings to Montag like the scent of wildflowers carried on the breeze. She is always there at odd hours, walking, observing, asking questions no one else dares to form. Her voice is quiet but relentless, prodding the corners of his mind he thought sealed shut. She notices the smallest things, how the leaves curl at the edges in autumn, how people's faces flicker with weariness even as their parlor walls scream with forced joy. She tells him she doesn't go to school much. Not because she is ill or lazy, but because the classrooms are places where no one thinks. They fill students with slogans and noise until silence itself feels like danger. She prefers wandering, watching the world, pressing a dandelion beneath her chin to see if it glows yellow. When Montag scoffs, she presses the flower against his own throat, laughing at the faint tint of color. "You're in love," she teases, "with life." Maybe without knowing it, Montag feels the strange sting of truth, though he cannot name why. Her words unsettle him more than fire alarms or flames. At home, Mildred sits in front of her wall-sized television, the family chattering at her through glowing screens. She drifts between meaningless conversations with fictional characters and the quiet hum of her seashell radios, tiny buds filling her ears with endless static. Her face is pale, her eyes glassy. When Montag mentions her near-fatal overdose, she shrugs. "I don't remember," she says flatly, as though nothing happened. And then she turns back to her screens, asking him to install a fourth wall so she can be completely surrounded. The chasm between them yawns wider each night. Montag speaks. Mildred does not listen. He reaches for her hand, but it is limp, cold, almost mechanical. He realizes she is more alive when speaking to the television family than when she is with him. Outside, Clarice's laughter still echoes in his memory. But then suddenly, she is gone. Days stretch on without her. When Montag asks, neighbors mutter that the McClellans moved away, or perhaps the girl was struck by a speeding car. No one knows, no one cares. The silence where her presence once bloomed leaves him hollow. At the firehouse, Montag sits with the other men as they play cards, smoke, and laugh. But everything feels different now. The walls, once comforting in their camaraderie, feel oppressive. The barking of the mechanical hound in its steel kennel echoes in his ears. The beast's glowing green eyes fix on him, and when it growls, he swears it knows his secret thoughts. Captain Beatty strolls through the room, his eyes sharp and amused. He speaks with the easy confidence of a man who knows every law, every loophole, every danger. "We keep people happy," he reminds them. "Books make people question, and when people question, they become unhappy." His words are smooth, logical, final. Yet beneath the surface, Montag feels the grip of suspicion. Beatty's gaze lingers on him too long, as if testing for cracks in his mask. Alone at night, Montag turns over Clarice's words again and again. Happiness, rain, love of life. He looks at Mildred beside him, seashell radios buzzing softly in her ears, her lips moving faintly in response to the voices of strangers. He wonders if this is living or merely existing. The fireman who once felt proud of his work now finds himself staring at the blackened remains of the houses they burn. He feels the weight of ash on his skin, the emptiness of the crowds who gather to watch flames consume a life's work. In his chest, something burns, but it is not the fire he once loved. It is a slow, painful hunger for something he cannot yet name. The alarm bell howls, sharp and metallic, splitting the night apart. Montag straps on his helmet, shoulders tense, the old thrill mingled with a new unease he cannot shake. The fire truck roars through empty streets, its sirens slicing the silence, while the men laugh and shout as if racing to a festival. But when they arrive, it is no ordinary house. This one is heavy with the smell of dust and ink, a library disguised as a home. The woman inside does not run. She does not cry out or beg for mercy. She stands among her books with a stillness that unnerves the men. Montag watches her as Captain Beatty issues the order. Kerosene streams from their hoses, soaking paper, fabric, wood. The books sag and darken, their pages fluttering like wings desperate to escape. "Step outside," Beatty commands her. "There's nothing worth dying for here." But she does not move. She strokes the spine of a book as though it were a child, then lights a single match in her hand. For a heartbeat, the world holds its breath. Then flame devours the room, swallowing shelves, curtains, ceilings, and her body in one violent bloom of fire. Montag staggers back, eyes wide, lungs choking on smoke. The laughter of his fellow firemen fades into the crackle of destruction. For the first time, he feels no pride, no triumph. He feels only horror. In that moment, he sees not just paper burning, but memory, thought, truth, vanishing in orange light. Without thinking, his hand darts out. A single book slips into his palm and disappears beneath his coat. The weight of it presses against his chest all the way home. That night, he lies in bed, the stolen book hidden behind a vent. Mildred chatters about her parlor walls, about scripts she can act in with the family. Her voice is a droning hum, words without substance. When he tells her about the woman, she shrugs, uninterested. "She was simple," Mildred says. "Why should anyone care about that?" She turns back to her screens, their bright flicker washing her face in pale light. Montag cannot bear it. He blurts out the truth of her overdose, how close she came to death. She denies it, offended, her memory erased by pills and static. He feels the distance between them stretch further, as though she already lives in another world, but the image of the woman among her books will not leave him. Her face, illuminated by flame, carries a defiance Montag has never seen before. Why would she die for these objects the state insists are meaningless? What could possibly live inside paper and ink that is worth more than breath itself? The next day at the firehouse, Montag hears the hound growl again. Its needle gleams faintly, ready to strike. He swears it reacts differently to him now, its nose catching some invisible trace of guilt. The other men laugh, dismissing his unease, but the thought gnaws at him. Perhaps the machine already knows about the book pressed into his wall at home. Captain Beatty arrives, his presence commanding the room. He speaks of order, of the need to prevent conflict by keeping people shallow and entertained. His words carry the easy charm of certainty, but Montag cannot unsee the woman's burning silhouette. The captain's philosophy feels suddenly brittle, hollow, like ash pretending to be whole wood. That evening, Montag touches the vent where the book lies hidden. It feels like contraband, like fire waiting to be unleashed. For the first time in his career, he does not feel the power of the destroyer. He feels the weight of the keeper. The fireman who burned for pleasure now trembles in the dark, listening to the silence of his house, wondering what secrets lie bound in paper that could make a woman smile as she embraced her own pyre. Montag wakes to a hollow silence, the kind that makes walls seem closer, air heavier. Mildred lies beside him, seashell radios humming in her ears, her lips twitching faintly at the whisper of voices only she can hear. He watches her face in the dim light, pale and distant, as if her body is here but her spirit floats elsewhere. He remembers the night she nearly died, the tubes draining her veins, the mechanical pumps that replaced her blood. She has no memory, no recognition of the shadow she passed through. To Montag, that ignorance is more terrifying than death itself. At breakfast, she babbles about her parlor walls, about the newest interactive script in which she will play the role of a loving aunt. The actors on the screens will pause, and she will fill the silence with lines fed to her on a slip of paper. She laughs at the thought, eager to join her luminous family. Montag stares at her, trying to connect, but her eyes are already on the glowing rectangles waiting in the next room. The memory of the woman who burned herself still hangs like smoke in his mind. He imagines her hand clutching the match, her lips whispering something he could not hear, and the sudden bloom of fire. Mildred shrugs it away as foolishness, but Montag cannot. His chest aches with questions, with the weight of the book hidden in the vent. On the streets, he no longer hears Clarice's laughter. Her absence gnaws at him. One evening, he asked Mildred what became of the girl. "She's gone," Mildred says flatly, eyes fixed on her wall. "Hit by a car, they say. Happens all the time." Montag reels, stunned by how casually she delivers the news, how quickly she changes the subject. Clarice is gone, erased as if she were nothing more than dust on the wind. Yet to him she lingers brighter than the flames he once adored. The firehouse feels colder now. The laughter of the men grates against his ears. The mechanical hound growls each time Montag enters, its steel muzzle pressing against the bars of its kennel, its eyes glowing with something close to hatred. He can almost feel the sting of its needle, venom coiled within. When he voices his fear, the others laugh, dismissing it as imagination. But Beatty's glance is sharp, measuring as though he knows precisely why the hound reacts this way. At home, Montag's unease hardens into resolve. One night, unable to resist, he pulls the hidden book from the vent. His hands tremble as he touches the fragile cover, the faint smell of old paper rising to meet him. He opens it carefully, eyes straining to drink in words that feel alive, pulsing with a forbidden energy. He does not understand everything, but the rhythm, the cadence, the sheer presence of thought fills him with something like wonder. Mildred finds him sitting with the book open. She gasps, horrified. "If they find this, we'll lose everything," she whispers. Her fear is not of truth, but of consequence. Montag begs her to listen, to read with him, to feel what he feels. She resists, but his desperation overwhelms her. One by one, he pulls more books from the vent, a small hoard of treasures he has been stealing without knowing why. They spill across the floor, paper whispering like restless ghosts. Mildred presses her hands to her ears, shaking her head. "They'll burn the house. They'll send the hound. Why can't you leave it alone?" Her voice cracks with panic, yet Montag feels only determination. He cannot stop now. In the silence that follows, he opens another book. Words leap from the page into the hollow chambers of his mind. They are voices from another age, people who thought deeply, who lived fully, whose wisdom still flickers despite the state's fire. He reads aloud, his voice raw, unsteady, but filled with something dangerous and new. Hope. Montag cannot shake the sense that he is standing at the edge of a cliff, one step from ruin and one step from freedom. The books he has stolen whisper to him at night, yet their words feel fractured, incomplete, like fragments of a song he does not yet know how to sing. He hungers for guidance, for someone who can help him understand the fire he now carries inside. He remembers an old man he once met on a park bench, a timid figure with sharp eyes and a cautious voice. Professor Faber. At the time, Faber had spoken of poetry in a hushed tone, as if each syllable were contraband. Montag recalls his bitterness, his quiet despair over a world that no longer valued thought. Perhaps Faber is the key, so Montag seeks him out. He rides through the streets, the city pressing in with its noise and glare, until at last he arrives at a small, shabby house. Inside, Faber is older, frailer than he remembers, his hands trembling slightly as he greets the unexpected visitor. Fear flickers in his eyes when Montag reveals the book hidden beneath his coat, but behind that fear burns recognition. "I don't want words," Montag pleads. "I want meaning. I want to know why a woman would burn for them, why I feel like I'm starving when I try to read." His voice breaks under the weight of his confession. Faber listens, cautious, as though weighing the risk of opening a door he has kept bolted for years. At last, he says, books are not magic in themselves. They are pieces of the world, ideas, truth, life, pressed between pages. They remind us of what we've forgotten. They make us see. His words ignite something in Montag. Yet Faber shakes his head, wary. "I am a coward," he admits. "I watched the world collapse and did nothing. I have no army, no weapons, no power. Montag grips his arm with urgency. You have knowledge. Teach me. Show me how to fight. The old man studies him, and for the first time, hope glimmers in his tired eyes. He retrieves a tiny device, no larger than a seashell. This is my voice, he says, placing it in Montag's hand. A green bullet for your ear. With it I can whisper to you, guide you, even when you stand among enemies. Montag slips the device into his ear. The faint hum of Faber's voice fills his skull, intimate and steady. It feels like carrying a secret ally inside his own body. For the first time, Montag is not alone in his rebellion. Together they hatch a dangerous dream. Perhaps if enough books survive, if enough people remember, the madness of fire can be undone. Perhaps they can plant books in the homes of firemen, expose the hypocrisy, unravel the machinery of fear from within. Faber trembles at the audacity of the plan, yet Montag feels the stirring of purpose, stronger than the flames he once commanded. When Montag leaves, the city feels different. Its neon lights, its roaring cars, its blank-faced citizens all seem like sleepwalkers moving through a dream too shallow to sustain. In his ear, Faber whispers quietly, urging him to be patient, to learn, to resist the urge to strike too quickly. But Montag's blood pounds with restless urgency. The fire that once belonged to the state now rages in his own chest, and he knows it will demand release. At home, Mildred recoils from his new intensity. She wants only the comfort of her parlor walls, the familiar buzz of entertainment. When he reads to her, his voice trembling, she fidgets and groans, resisting every word. She invites her friends over, their painted faces glowing in the artificial light, their laughter brittle. Montag cannot stop himself. He reads to them, forcing poetry into their shallow world. The verses cut deep, stirring tears in one woman's eyes, while the others cry out in anger, declaring it obscene. They flee, their outrage echoing in the house like a verdict. In Montag's ear, Faber groans with dismay. You're reckless, he whispers. You've drawn attention to yourself too soon. But Montag cannot regret it. For a moment the words pierced the veil and someone felt something real. That to him is worth the risk. Yet in the firehouse the weight of suspicion tightens. Captain Beatty circles him like a hawk. His speech is laced with paradox, half-truths, and threats that sting like whips. The hound sniffs the air more keenly now, its metal body crouched with lethal patience. Montag feels the walls closing in, but with Faber's whisper in his ear, he clings to the fragile thread of courage. The time for silence is ending. The fire within him is no longer theirs to command. The firehouse smells of smoke and kerosene, but to Montag it reeks of suspicion. Captain Beatty's eyes linger too long. His words curl like smoke, choking rather than illuminating. The other men joke and shuffle cards, but their laughter feels hollow, masking the tension that hangs heavy in the room. And from the corner comes the sound that gnaws at Montag's nerves. The steady, low growl of the mechanical hound. The beast crouches in its steel pen, eyes glowing a cold green, metal legs shifting with insect precision. When Montag steps closer, its needle snout presses against the bars, quivering as though it can taste his fear. The sound rattles his bones. The men laugh, dismissing it as chance, but Montag feels certain. The hound knows. Somewhere in its coded circuits his secret is recorded. Beatty notices his discomfort and smiles thinly. He leans back in his chair, speaking not to Montag alone but to the whole room. You see, he says, books are dangerous not because of what they contain, but because they contradict. One man's truth is another man's poison. Leave them alone and people are happy. Disturb them and suddenly you have anger, envy, rebellion. His words are slick, rehearsed, but his eyes bore into Montag like drills. We are the keepers of peace, he concludes softly. Why we burn to protect? Montag swallows, his mouth dry. In his ear, Faber whispers faintly, urging him to stay calm, to play along. But every word Beatty utters feels like a lash across his conscience. He wants to shout, to throw the books down before them and demand answers, but his hands stay rigid at his sides. The days stretch taut. At home, Mildred drifts further into her glowing walls, her voice rising and falling with the false family that embraces her more than he ever could. She has no interest in his turmoil, no desire to share in the dangerous beauty of the words he reads. When he tries, she turns away, terrified not of meaning but of consequence. Montag sees now that she is not his partner but the system's child, cradled by noise, anesthetized by speed. Beatty begins to tighten the noose. He peppers conversations with obscure literary quotes, his memory astonishing, his tone mocking. "A little learning is a dangerous thing," he murmurs, watching Montag's face carefully. "Drink deep, or taste not the Pierian spring." Each phrase is a challenge, a blade wrapped in silk. It is as if he knows Montag has strayed, and he delights in the torment of exposing him without proof. The hound, too, becomes a shadow in his mind. Each time he hears its claws scrape the floor, he imagines the sting of its needle piercing his flesh, venom pumping through his veins. The city hums with cars that scream through the streets, with people who laugh at nothing, who never pause to wonder. But Montag feels hunted. He senses the machine and his captain circling closer, waiting for him to falter. One night, Beatty summons him for a ride. The alarms wail and the men leap into the truck. The firehouse lights blaze as they roar through the streets. Montag clutches the brass nozzle, but his heart is no longer in rhythm with the others. He feels Faber's whisper in his ear, faint but steady, reminding him of courage. "Hold on," the old man says. "You are not alone. Remember why you carry those words." The truck screeches to a halt before a house. Montag looks up, stunned. It is his own. Mildred stands on the sidewalk, her suitcase clutched in her hand, her face pale and tight with fear. She does not look at him. Without a word, she slips into a waiting car, vanishing into the night. Montag's world tilts. Beatty's smile is sharp, victorious. "Well, well," he says smoothly. "Every fireman gets to burn once in his career. It's tradition, it's cleansing." The men laugh as they hand Montag the torch. His house, his books, his life, all to be reduced to ash by his own hand. The hound shifts in the shadows, its green eyes unblinking, waiting for his choice, waiting for his choice, waiting for his choice, waiting for his choice. The kerosene hose hangs heavy in Montag's grip, its metallic weight pressing against his palm like judgment. His house looms before him, dark and silent. The walls that once held Mildred's laughter, or rather the echo of her parlor family, now waiting to collapse in flame. The suitcases are gone, the bed is cold, and Mildred herself has vanished into the night without a backward glance. He stares at the structure that once held his life, realizing it has never truly been a home. Beatty circles him like a conductor, savoring the pause before the orchestra erupts. His voice is smooth, almost playful, as he recites fragments of verse, mocking Montag with words pulled from the very books they burn. "Old Montag wanted to play at being a thinker," he sneers. "But thought is poison, and now you'll taste the cure." The other firemen stand by, waiting for the spectacle, their faces hidden by the flicker of the street lamps. In Montag's ear, Faber's voice quivers with dread. "Run," the old man whispers. "Don't give them what they want. Escape while you can." But Beatty seems to sense even this. He plucks the green bullet from Montag's ear with sudden precision, turning it between his fingers. "So," he says, his tone laced with triumph, "the coward professor still lives. We'll pay him a visit soon." He crushes the device in his fist. Montag feels heat rise inside him, hotter than the fire waiting in his hands. Beatty is not merely destroying his home. He is threatening the fragile thread of hope, the one soul who believed in him. The words spill from Beatty like sparks, clever, sharp, relentless. But beneath the rhetoric, Montag hears the cruelty, the hollow pride of a man who believes himself master of ashes. The decision is sudden, almost instinctual. With a flick, the nozzle in Montag's hands roars to life. Flame explodes from the torch, searing the night. Beatty's mocking smile freezes in the orange glare before it dissolves into a scream swallowed by fire. His body crumples, his voice silenced, his knowledge of endless quotations gone in a rush of smoke. The other firemen stagger back, stunned, their courage withering in the face of Montag's fury. The mechanical hound leaps from the shadows, its steel legs pounding against the pavement. Montag turns the flamethrower on it, but too late. Its needle pierces his leg, pumping fire of a different kind into his veins. Pain sears through him white-hot, but he forces the trigger, engulfing the machine in flame until its circuits melt and its claws twitch lifeless in the dust. The silence that follows is thick, broken only by the crackle of burning wires. Montag stumbles, his leg throbbing, the venom spreading. He knows he has crossed a line from which there is no return. He is no longer a fireman, no longer a servant of the state. He is a fugitive, a traitor, a man marked for death. He runs. The city blurs around him as he drags his wounded leg through streets that suddenly feel alien. Helicopters thrum above, their searchlights cutting the darkness. Sirens wail, rising and falling like hounds baying for blood. He hears announcements echo from loudspeakers. Wanted, fugitive, armed and dangerous. His own name, his own face broadcast to the world that now hunts him. In the shadows, he clutches the few remaining books pressed against his chest. They are heavy, yet they feel like the only thing keeping him upright. Each step is agony, but the fire in his heart burns hotter than the poison in his veins. He no longer runs toward safety. He runs toward meaning, toward a truth he barely understands but knows he must protect. Behind him, his home collapses into glowing ruin. Ahead, the city waits with teeth bared. Between them, a man reborn in fire staggers forward, hunted but unbroken. The city turns into a hunting ground. Montag limps through alleys and side streets, the venom in his leg throbbing like molten iron. Overhead, helicopters beat the night air with metallic wings, their searchlights slicing through darkness in sweeping arcs. Each siren blast seems to vibrate in his bones, each barked command from distant loudspeakers branding him as prey. He ducks into shadows, presses against walls, every movement sharpened by fear. The stolen books clutched to his chest are both burden and shield. He longs to stop, to read, to lose himself in their voices, but now they serve only as fuel for his flight. He feels the city's machinery closing around him, a vast net tightening. Faber's absence in his ear is a hollow ache. Without the tiny green bullet, his voice cannot guide Montag. Still, Montag recalls the old man's advice. Run to the river, follow the tracks, find the others. He clings to those words as if they are scripture. The hound comes. Not the one he burned, but another, built and primed, released from the firehouse kennels. Its claws strike the pavement with mechanical precision, its synthetic nostrils twitching as they drink in his scent. Montag hears its distant growl, the sound of death moving closer with every heartbeat. He stumbles, nearly falls, then forces himself forward, sweat stinging his eyes. Crowds gather at street corners, their faces turned to massive outdoor screens. The chase is broadcast in real time. Montag's flight painted as spectacle, entertainment. Strangers cheer for his capture, their voices rising like an arena crowd hungry for blood. The world he once served now celebrates his destruction. He bursts onto a wide avenue, headlights bearing down on him. A speeding car roars past, missing him by inches, laughter spilling from its windows. Teenagers drunk on speed and indifference never even notice how close they came to crushing him. He realizes Clarice's fate was no accident. Her death was written in the city's reckless pulse. Montag flees again, lungs burning, his leg numb with venom. He can no longer distinguish between his heartbeat and the pounding of the pursuit. He reaches the edge of the river at last, the black water rolling under a silver moon. The hound's growl is closer now, its claws clicking against stone. He has seconds. He stumbles into the shallows, the water icy and merciless. The current pulls at him, tugging away ash, pain, fear. He clutches a book to his chest, then lets it slip beneath the surface, watching ink bleed like veins in the water. He dives, letting the river swallow him whole. The city recedes behind him, its glow shrinking to a smear of orange against the horizon. The hound's growl fades into static, drowned by the river's steady voice. Montag floats, carried by the current, his body numbed, his mind raw and stripped bare. For the first time he is out of reach. For the first time he belongs not to the city but to the world beyond it. Above him the stars shimmer cold and distant. He thinks of Clarice, her laughter, her questions. He thinks of the old woman in her burning house, her courage. He thinks of Faber, whispering of truth. And as the river carries him further into the dark, Montag realizes he has crossed from one life into another. The fireman is gone. What rises in his place is something new, fragile, uncertain, but free. The river delivers Montag into silence, a silence unlike any he has ever known. No sirens, no helicopters, no engines screaming through the night. Only the steady breath of water against the banks and the rustle of leaves in the wind. He pulls himself onto the shore, drenched and shivering but alive. The venom in his leg aches, yet the pain feels distant, as though it belongs to another life, the life of the fireman who burned. For the first time he breathes air untainted by smoke and kerosene. It smells of earth, of damp soil, of trees whispering in the darkness. He stares at the stars, vast and indifferent, and feels both small and strangely whole. Here, away from the city's glare, he sees the sky as Clarice once described it. Alive, endless, waiting. He walks. His steps are unsteady, but with each one the weight of the city falls away. The forest swallows him, its shadows deep, yet welcoming. He feels as though he is walking backward in time, into a world untouched by firemen or parlor walls. Crickets sing, an owl hoots softly, and the rhythm of nature steadies his pulse. He realizes he has never truly heard silence until now. Then, ahead by the railroad tracks, a glow. A fire, but not the devouring kind he knows. This fire is gentle, steady, warming the faces of men gathered around it. Montag approaches cautiously, heart racing. The figures turn and one steps forward. An older man with calm eyes and soot-streaked hands. "You're welcome here," the man says simply. His name is Granger. Montag sits among them, the fire's warmth soaking into his frozen limbs. These are outcasts, men who have fled the city, scholars and vagabonds alike, each carrying something far more valuable than possessions. They are the book people. One by one they explain their purpose. Each man has memorized a book, every word, every phrase, carrying it within himself like a living library. They speak of Homer, of Plato, of the Bible, of forgotten poets and philosophers. When the flames of the state consume the paper, the words will survive in them. They are the vessels of memory, waiting for a time when the world is ready to listen again. Montag listens, his heart pounding with awe. He confesses his past, his role as a fireman, the houses he destroyed, the lives he helped erase. The men do not condemn him. They nod, understanding. "We all have scars," Granger says. "What matters is what we do next." They ask him if he remembers any book well enough to keep alive. Montag struggles, but lines surface in his memory. Fragments of Ecclesiastes, words about time and renewal, about building up and breaking down. The others nod with quiet approval. "Hold on to it," Granger tells him. "You are that book now. When the time comes, you will speak it." The fire crackles softly. Montag feels the glow not as destruction but as life, a center of warmth around which people gather. For the first time, fire creates instead of erases. He stares into the embers and sees not ashes but seeds. Fragile, waiting to take root. In the distance, the city glows faintly, pulsing like a machine unaware that its time is running out. Montag senses the fragility of its towers, its streets, its people lulled into sleep. And yet here, on the edge of wilderness, hope flickers. He realizes that though he has lost his home, his wife, his past, he has found something greater. A family of memory, guardians of thought, keepers of tomorrow. The fire warms his face. The stars burn above. And for the first time, Montag feels the stirrings of purpose as steady as the breath of the earth beneath his feet. Dawn creeps pale across the horizon, its first light brushing the treetops as Montag sits among the book people. The fire at their center smolders, its glow soft against the chill of morning. Granger speaks quietly, telling stories of his grandfather, a man who believed the measure of life was not in possessions, but in what one leaves behind. A tree planted, a tool crafted, a kindness given. Montag listens, absorbing every word. For once, talk is not noise, it is meaning. The men rise and begin to move, following the tracks that stretch into the wilderness. Montag walks with them, his steps steadier, his mind no longer consumed by fear. He carries fragments of scripture in his memory, words like seeds buried deep within. He repeats them silently, holding them close, afraid to lose them. He is no longer a fireman, he is a book. Then the sky shatters. A low rumble grows into a roar, the earth trembling beneath their feet. Montag looks back, and on the horizon the city erupts. Bombs fall like thunderbolts, blinding white, followed by firestorms that swallow towers, streets, and people in an instant. The great glow of civilization collapses into smoke and ash. Montag staggers, the blast wave rippling through the trees. In that moment he sees Mildred's face in his mind, vacant, pale, her eyes glued to the walls of her parlor. He imagines her sitting in the glow of her screens as the bombs fell, unable to tear her gaze away. The image slices through him with grief and regret. He whispers her name, then lets it drift into silence. The men around him bow their heads. No one speaks. The city that once defined their exile is gone, reduced to rubble in a single breath. Yet in their silence, Montag senses not only mourning but resolve. They are all that remains now. The memory of books, the fragile ember of humanity's voice. Granger lays a hand on Montag's shoulder. Now we go back, he says, not to rebuild the walls as they were, but to build something better. We carry the past, so the future won't forget. They walk. The forest gives way to open fields, the sun climbing higher, the air cool and sharp. Montag recites the verses in his head, words about healing, about seasons, about time to plant and time to harvest. He knows that someday he will speak them aloud, and others will listen. The city smolders behind them, a black scar against the horizon. Ahead lies uncertainty, but also possibility. Montag looks to the men beside him, weary, ragged, yet carrying worlds within them, and feels a strange peace. The fire that once destroyed now burns gently within him, a flame of remembrance, of hope. He whispers the words of Ecclesiastes as the road stretches on. To everything there is a season. And though the world lies in ashes, he feels the dawn pressing closer, promising renewal. The book people walk on, carrying not paper but living words. Montag among them, ready to keep the fire alive, keep the fire alive, keep the fire alive.